Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by, and welcome to the Jackson Park Project Section 106 Consultation Webinar 4. At this time, all participants are on a listen-only mode. Later, there will be time for questions and answers. Instructions will be given at that time. If you should require assistance during the call, please press star, then 0. I will now like to turn the conference over to our host, Allison Calogero. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Jackson Park Section 106 Consulting Parties MOA meeting. My name is Allison Calogero. I'm a Program Support Specialist from the Volpe National Transportation Systems Center, and my colleague Angela and I will be facilitating the webinar and supporting the conversation today. As many of you know, this is our 4th webinar in a webinar series, and we are very excited to continue the conversation today. I would like to share some information on the web room, its functionalities, and how you all can participate today. In the center of the screen, you have today's presentation. At the bottom is the closed captioning, which will provide real-time captioning. And to the left is the file share pod, where you are able to download a PDF version of the slide deck and a copy of the final MOA. On the left-hand side, you will see a series of pods: the note pod, the attendee pod, and the chat pod. In the top left corner is the note pod, which includes the call-in information. This line is for our participants to use during our comment and question and answer period of today's meeting. And this line is managed by our operator, Dawn. Dawn, thanks so much for being with us today. At the appropriate time, to queue yourself to speak, please dial 10, and to take yourself off of the queue, please dial 10 again. Again, this line will be used for our comment and question and answer portion of today's meeting, in which all consulting parties will have the opportunity to ask a question after the presentation. We ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And during this comment and question portion of the meeting, we ask that one representative from each consulting party provide comments or ask questions about the MOA using the call line or the chat pod in the bottom left. Please do not queue into the call line until we reach this portion of today's meeting. And at this time, you and your consulting party may also decline to comment using the chat pod. I'd also like to mention, when using the call line, please make sure that the audio on your computer is turned down so you don't cause an audio or echo feedback into the phone. Selected questions from the chat pod will be read aloud, and the remainder will be responded to after the meeting. You can use the chat window on the bottom left of the screen. It will be monitored for comments and questions throughout the meeting, so please feel free to utilize that as much as you would like. We ask that if you do leave a comment or question using the call line or in the chat pod, please identify which consulting party you are affiliated with. And lastly, this meeting is being recorded, and the video and audio record of today's meeting will be posted online after the webinar today. So moving along here, I would like to turn it over to Matt Fuller of the Federal Highway Administration to welcome you all and begin our discussion today. Matt?
Thank you, Allison. Again, this is Matt Fuller with the Federal Highway Administration. I'm the Environmental Programs Engineer in the Illinois Division Office, and I'm helping the city and other agencies through the Section 106 process on this project. We have other agencies on the line that are involved in this project as well today to answer any questions at the end of the presentation, including the Illinois Department of Transportation, City of Chicago, the National Park Service, the Chicago Park District. The purpose of our meeting today is to provide a summary of the substantive comments we received on the draft Memorandum of Agreement. We'll identify what changes have occurred to the MOA based on those comments, and also we'll review the next steps, including the process for finalizing the MOA. For our agenda today, we'll go over the steps that we've taken to get to this point in the process of resolving adverse effects. Eleanor Gorski from the city will review the summary substantive comments that we received on the MOA and the summary of the changes that were made to the MOA. And then we'll talk about what the next steps are to finalizing the Section 106 process. And then we'll open it up for questions on the MOA and then just questions in general if anyone has any. So this slide shows the process that we've gone through to reach a resolution of the adverse effects. Our first meeting we held back on May 6th, where we issued a survey seeking ideas on mitigation measures from the consulting parties. Our second meeting on May 20th, we summarized those results and reviewed and discussed what those mitigation ideas entailed. And then we prepared a draft MOA based on those ideas that we circulated to consulting parties, and that review started on July 9th. We had our third consulting party meeting on July 16th, where we reviewed and discussed the proposed MOA and also sought feedback from the consulting parties at that meeting through the end of the comment period in August. And we also talked about the next steps for the MOA. So today, as I mentioned, we'll be summarizing the substantive comments that we received on the draft MOA, summarize the revisions that we made as a result of those comments, and then we'll talk about the process to finalize the MOA and conclude the Section 106 process. So again, thank you all for attending today's meeting of the consulting parties, and I'll turn it over to Eleanor Gorski for the next part of the presentation. Eleanor?
Good morning, everyone. Again, it's good to see everyone coordinated for this meeting. And my part of this presentation will be going over the comments we've received. I will be going through this fairly quickly, and just as a reminder, we will have time at the end to go through any detailed comments or questions. So this is an overview of the changes in the comments that we've received. So we've received approximately 100 pieces of correspondence, including letters, emails, comments in the chat pod from the various meetings, as well as phone calls and conversations with the various consulting parties and other members of the public. We've also received comments from 30 different agencies and organizations. And the slides are summarizing, as I stated, the substantial comments heard from the consulting parties on the draft MOA. Again, this is just an overview of those comments, of the more substantial comments. We have captured all the comments in the comment disposition, and that can be found on the city's website at the address you see on the screen in the slide. So changes to the MOA, again, I'll go through this overview, but please keep in mind that we'll be able to take questions at the end if I do not cover something that you have a question about. And again, you've received the red line of the changes that I'm going through here as well. And that is what we're referencing when we indicate where the changes are made in this document. So the first content deals with the changes to the whereas clauses at the beginning of the document. And these were really reordered for clarity, minor corrections made in, and definitions for signatories and invited signatories added, again for clarity. And you'll see that throughout the changes in the MOA. Many of these changes are made for clarity and to clarify expectations of the expected products out of the stipulation. One thing that I did want to make a point about is a change in the whereas that talks about who has been invited as signatories to this. The Miami Tribe of Oklahoma and the Forest County Powhatan Community Tribe has been removed from that whereas clause, and they are they do not have a role in carrying out mitigation, so they're not included as invited signatories, but they are still considered a consulting party for the purposes of this MOA. Field documentation. Again, there was specific language added that referenced the guidelines, as you can see on the slide, that the field documentation must meet, clarify expectations and the standards by which the documentation should meet. Similar with the cultural landscape report, it was revised to specify which guidance we should be following when preparing the cultural landscape report, and the citation was included in the stipulation. Interpretive materials. Again, the clarification was made to this particular stipulation to specify who would participate and who would be reviewing and commenting when a draft plan was put together. The rehabilitation of the Stone Comfort Station and Statue of the Republic. Again, we clarified the agency review, the back and forth that needed to happen to ensure that the rehabilitation documentation was done appropriately, and again corrected the citation for the standards that would be used for this work. Design review. This pertains to the east end of the Midway Plaisance. And again, more clarity was given to the comment period, the review period, as well as which standards would be used when reviewing designs for this portion of the project. The submission of documentation, stipulation 2A. Again, this is clarifying the review process for IDOT and CDOT, and this is getting into more of the process of administering the MOA. Again, another clarification in the process. The 30 days for review begins upon SHPO, not IDOT's receipt of the documentation. And SHPO has confirmed that this is sufficient for their review. A new stipulation was added for post-review discoveries, and again referencing what the standard would be used for this work. Again, if there is a federal agency that needs to be involved, this stipulation allows that federal agency to join the MOA in the future. And again, dispute resolution stipulation, clarifying and revising the language for consistency. Again, another clarification and correction. We understand that the consulting parties throughout this many-year process, the contact or the consulting party may have changed. So as you had received in the email notification for this meeting, we have asked that if you see that either your consulting party or the contact for your consulting party has changed, please make us aware of it. We do want to have the correct consulting parties listed on attachment B. So in addition to making those corrections before this meeting and certainly after this meeting as we receive more feedback, we've also added a column under attachment B that indicates what the status of the party will be if a party decides to sign. And we have a screen capture here or a JPEG of what that page looks like for illustration. And we're happy to answer any questions about that as well. And again, the target schedule updated. This is in response to coordination between the many agencies involved in this project. And you see the updated dates on the slide. And now I'll hand this back over to Matt to go through next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. So following this consulting party meeting today, similar to what we've done on past consulting party meetings, City of Chicago will post the audio transcripts and additional correspondence received on the City of Chicago website that you're all familiar with by this point. We do ask, as I noted in the email, that the consulting parties please review your signature sheets that are at the end of the Memorandum of Agreement and make sure that we have the correct name for your consulting party organization or an individual name, as well as the official who has the authority to sign on behalf of your consulting party. Please provide those corrections no later than 12 o'clock Central Time a week from today on November 6th. And you can do that by emailing me at this email address, matt.fuller@dot.gov, with a CC to todd.wyatt@cityofchicago.org. And after the November 6th commenting deadline, Federal Highway will send out the final MOA electronically to all the required signatories, invited signatories, and consulting parties. We plan to do that on November 10th. We ask that all the consulting parties sign and return your signature sheets by November 25th at 5 p.m. Central Time. You can return those one of two ways. You can sign and scan those and email them to myself and Todd Wyatt at the City of Chicago. If you're unable to sign and scan it and return it by email, you can return it to me through the mail at the address on the screen. And just to note, other federal review processes are being conducted in parallel with the Section 106 review, including NEPA and Section 4F analysis. Those are ongoing. And implementation of the mitigation measures in the final MOA can begin once the MOA is executed. And with that, I will turn it back over to Eleanor, who will facilitate the questions section of the webinar. Eleanor?
Thanks, Matt. Just as we had in previous webinars, we will be asking each party to have a chance to call in and provide comments on the final draft MOA. And if you choose not to make a comment, please enter your organization name in the chat box and indicate you have no comment. We will be going through the list and calling and making sure that everyone has had a chance to speak as you call in. Each consulting party will have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. And then once everyone has had a chance, we will open up a second round for consulting parties to speak. And then again, as in previous meetings, there will be a round of general questions after we address specific questions on the MOA through this initial round of comments. Okay, well with that, I'd like to open up the line.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to ask a question, please press 1 then 0 on your telephone keypad. You may withdraw your question at any time by repeating the 1-0 command. If you're using a speakerphone, please pick up the handset before pressing the numbers. Once again, if you have a question, it'll be 1 then 0 at this time. And it'll be a moment for the first question. And first, we're going to the line of Gray Oswald. Please go ahead.
Yes, Jackson Park Advisory Council is pleased to sign the Memorandum of Agreement. This procedure is not set up to just do things and examine things in a void. It is to set questions of need and purpose. We believe that the Obama Presidential Center and many of the improvements for the roadways and circulation and connectivity of the park are important to do and will have great benefits. We recognize the need for certain mitigations, including documentation and other ways of preserving memory, and we want to have even more than that, but it may not be possible in this process, but we will continue to fight for those and for restorations and for the updating, in effect, of what that memory means for in this time with these new with the neighborhoods as they are today and will be in the future, and we look forward to a great park in the future. We do have some questions afterwards regarding some of the comments which we think may not be attributed correctly to us, but we'll deal with that in another round. Will the comments be published with the MOA or not?
The comment disposition is up online right now, and we will certainly be doing a disposition for this meeting as a closeout for this process to make sure we include all the comments.
And that they were correctly attributed, okay?
Right. Absolutely. Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you. And again, if you have a question or comment, please press 10. Next, we're going to the line of Al Bonnet. Please go ahead.
Yes, I answer to Al Bonnet or Al Dubonnet or Dubonnet as well. First and foremost, this is Al Dubonnet of the Jackson Park Golf and Community Leadership Council. I want to thank all involved, Eleanor, Matt, Todd, the entire body of those who worked tirelessly over the years regarding this, and more than everyone can really understand. I've attended so many meetings, but really to the Obama Foundation and their unwavering leadership in this process of helping Chicago's neighborhood and parks most in dire need, and definitely neglected over the hundreds of years. And there's been work done. I will not cast aspersions to the Park District. They've done a yeoman's work. But now, for the next years to come, we truly have something special. I would like to just, again, commend the work, affirm our support as a consulting party and support for all that is being done for the the mitigation, the restoration, the redevelopment and development in Jackson Park, and especially all the work that will be done for the generations to come. My only question is that those who oppose this much needed work in restoration and just disregarded the needs for the people, will their names be prominently also displayed for those to understand who stood in the way of working best for a community where they had no standing, and as well they provided all the opposition? Shall those names be also prominently featured so that everyone will know in years to come that was done unnecessarily? But again, that's part of life in this republic, in the Democratic Republic. We pray continues to stand. Again, Al Dubonnet, and thank you all for participating, and all those who tirelessly worked over the many years and attended the hundreds of meetings I attended too. Thank you for this opportunity, and God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Dubonnet. Appreciate your comments. And again, we have tried to be as meticulous as we can in keeping track of the comments throughout this project, so that the record will stand. as we've all experienced it throughout this time period.
Awesome. The public needs to know, and it's a good thing, and that's good, not for negative, but just to know who has always been there for the people's good, and those who bees, botany, birds, and butterflies are great. I'm a naturalist as well, but we have to do things for the benefit of people because that's who we are. Eleanor, awesome. Thank you for your tireless work, and we're blessed to have your presence. Take care. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, if you have a question or comment, please press 10. Next, we're going to the line of Ward Miller. Please go ahead.
Yes. Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
We can. Thanks, Ward.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Ward Miller. I'm Executive Director of Preservation Chicago, a Chicago-based advocacy group. First of all, I just want to say that living in Chicago my whole life and being from a family that had long roots extending to the 1890s on Chicago's South Side, the Jackson Park and the lakefront parks of Chicago really do belong to all of us. And I think that's something important to remember when addressing Al's comments, and I do appreciate Al's comments. I just wanted to clarify that for the record. And we at Preservation Chicago remain both concerned and opposed to the Obama Presidential Center to be built on public lands and in historic Jackson Park, designed by Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Baugh. While we welcome the OPC to Chicago's South Side, we are of the opinion that it should be built nearby on the University of Chicago campus, where it would join many other high-rise centers and institutions of learning built by the university and continuously in construction by the university. I think that shouldn't be overlooked. There are many projects of the same size and scale going on that campus or on University of Chicago-owned lands that are also city-owned lands at Dr. Martin Luther King Drive and Garfield Boulevard, 55th Street. So much of the cost burdens for this proposed center are placed upon the citizens of Chicago and the taxpayers of the state of Illinois. And this includes the rehabilitation of buildings suggested to remediate the damage caused by 20 acres for the Obama Center. Many of these buildings, which have been neglected for decades, some falling and collapsing in a state of extreme disrepair. So if located nearby, this center and this building would completely fall on the Obama Foundation. If it were to build on this land and to construct, maintain, and operate this amazing center, but of course to put it on private lands and not burden it with public subsidies. So we are very concerned about this, and the precedent it sets for the future, our lakefront lands, and very few changes have occurred over these many meetings to the plans, and I think that's also a point where there should be some mediation and some changes made. So therefore, we cannot agree to sign the MOA document as it currently exists. So we wanted to share that with all of you. And we do believe there should be an full environmental impact statement prepared as part of this work. This is really unprecedented. So we want to encourage that. Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
And once again, if you have a question or comment, please press 10, and it'll be a moment for the next question. And next we're going to the line of Brendan Elms. Please go ahead.
Hello, this is Brendan Elms with Jackson Park Watch. I concur with Ward Miller's assessment of the lack of substantive changes in the MOA. It's all basically copy editing corrections, so that's a real disappointment. It still does nothing to address the severe adverse effects on the park caused by the current plan for the Obama Center and the road changes, does nothing to preserve the central portion of Jackson Park with the Olmstedian vision of open spaces and natural areas, does nothing to preserve the women's garden that crowns the intersection of the park with the Midway, and does nothing to provide for new parkland to replace the 20 acres to be lost. So Jackson Park Watch will not be signing the MOA either, and we regret the conclusion that it's come to. I will say that I'm particularly struck, though, by what seems to be a gap in the MOA, and so I do have a question. Even as minimal as it's doing, there's no guarantee in here that the comfort station and the Statue of the Republic will be completed by 2025 when this agreement ends. What happens then? What's the guarantee? Where's the accountability that this will ever be done?
Matt, would you like to address that?
Sure. Yeah, so in the MOA there are annual reporting requirements where we're keeping tabs on how things are going as far as implementing the mitigation that's committed to in the MOA, and so that those annual reports are going to be shared with essentially all of the parties that are involved in this project right now as consulting parties. So you all will be informed of how progress is being made, and the intent is that it will be done in that time frame of the MOA. However, if something should come up, because things do happen and sometimes schedules change, there's always the option to amend or extend the life of the agreement if necessary. So there's safety valves built into MOAs if something were to happen where the schedule had to be extended.
I would suggest that should be explained more explicitly with regard to the schedule, because I sure didn't come away with that idea. To me, it was these are both the comfort station and the Statue of the Republic are things that have been long neglected. This is benign neglect or whatever for a long time, so they've been desperately need attention, as do many other structures in the park. And without a real deadline and a real push behind it, it will slip, given the other pressures, financial and otherwise, on the park district or the city, and I find it a real gap in your which is in any case a very weak MOA. So thank you.
Thank you. And there are no more questions in queue on the phones at this time.
Matt, this is Jamie.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jamie. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Sure, sorry. This is Jamie Loshinger from the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, and I guess, maybe this is just a question to the broader group, but for the time that FHWA has allowed for you to provide your signature page, should you choose to sign the MOA, is that sufficient time for your agency or organization? People can respond in the chat box to that question. I just want to make sure that the time that folks have to sign is sufficient, and that it's, allows them to have, adequate time to consider if they would like to sign the MOA in the various roles. And this is just a note about the execution process. When we get to that point, the ACHP is the last to sign. The FHWA would have to request that we execute. So, Matt, we can talk about that offline if you'd like, about what that process looks like.
Thanks, Jamie. I didn't make a point at that during my opening remarks, but yeah, I understand. We'll collect all the signature sheets from concurring parties and the other invited signatories, the SHPO and Federal Highway, and we'll package all that up essentially and submit that to the Advisory Council requesting your signature when the time's appropriate.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that.
And we do have another person to queue up if you want to go to that line.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to the line of Kay Pointer Brown. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
I'd like to follow up on Brenda's point about timelines. Both the city and the Federal Highway Administration are signers to the MOU, but there's no timelines presented for the roadway construction and reconstruction, which is the primary impact for the organization that I represent. And so I'm wondering where we will find that information and how construction plans will be shared with those that it will impact primarily.
Can you tell us what organization you represent, please?
The Vista Garage Building Corporation. Our garage enters and exits on 59th Street, which is scheduled to be capped at Stony Island so that we will no longer have left turn access to Stony Island. And then, of course, all the many other road construction processes outlined in the road revamp will have years-long impact for my shareholders.
I do believe that we have Nate Roseberry with CDOT on the line that can answer your question, but again, the timeline in here is to pertain to the mitigation and the stipulations. So Nate, if you wouldn't mind answering where we will have publicly posted the construction timing for the road work.
Yeah, happy to do so, Eleanor. So you're correct that those timelines are not in the MOA itself. We are working with the Alderman's office to ensure that coordination occurs with the community and key members to make sure that information is available on the construction schedule. Pending the finalization of the federal review process, we would start the process for bidding out and selecting a contractor to start construction, and at such time we'll have a better understanding of exact timing for construction. What I know now is we anticipate the construction to last approximately 2 years for our first bid set, which would be the work on Stony Island 64th to 59th, Lakeshore Drive 63rd to 57th, and Hayes Drive, Stony Island to Lakeshore Drive.
And beginning in 6 months or a year, once those bids are let, I assume that's a process that will take some considerable time.
Yes, thank you. I should have clarified that point. Yes, it takes approximately 6 months from any federal determination for the process for solicitation and selection of a contractor.
All right, thank you. And I hope that those impacted, not just my organization, but the many organizations represented here will be continue to be consulting parties in the road construction process.
Sure, that's a good point. We can make sure to include you and other organizations in our information distribution for construction.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And once again, if you have a question or comment, please press 10. And there are no questions in queue at this time.
Todd, would you mind going through the consulting party list to see who we have not heard from in terms of in the chat or responding by asking a question, just to ensure that folks know that they have an opportunity?
Sure, Eleanor. Okay, I will call out the names of the consulting parties that we have not heard from today. One Woodlawn, Blacks and Green, Chicago Urban League, Don Nash Park Advisory Council, DuSable Museum of African American History, Emerald South Economic Development Collaboration, Friends of the Parks, FTA, Golden Shore, Heritage, I'm sorry, we did hear from Heritage, Hyde Park Arts Center, MPAC, NASH PAC, National Association for Olmsted Parks, Nichols Park Advisory Council, Obama Foundation, Open Lands, Rosalie Villas Homeowners, Save the Midway, Southside Neighbors for Hope, SOW Solutions, the Cultural Landscape Foundation, the University of Chicago, Vista Garage Building Corp., Washington Park Advisory Council, Raymond Lodato. So if you've heard your name or organization's name called, please indicate whether you would like to make a comment by dialing 10 or declining in the chat, please.
And we do have a couple more entries. Going to the line of Aaron Adams, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. So I represent Southside Neighbors for Hope. I first want to thank all of the people who have worked really hard on putting this together. I've, like many of us on this call, have attended so many meetings over the years, and really we're very enthusiastically looking forward it to come to a close. I also want to express my frustration at attempts to further delay this process. I think all of us are anxiously awaiting groundbreaking and, most importantly, jobs for our community members so that they can have something to look forward to help them weather this pandemic. I think even a month or two more delaying of this process makes our community members, myself included, begin to really question whether a small minority of people who don't represent the community at large are able to throw sand into the gears of this. And I've expressed this frustration throughout this process. So I hope those who are focused on making sure that the timeline is fair, I appreciate that very much. But also I want to caution you that there really are a few members who are just trying to delay this process. And unfortunately, they don't realize that this is the OPC in Jackson Park is the outcome that is going to happen. And I wish that they would just join on and help us make this a really positive thing for our community. We will be thrilled to sign the MOA and see this come to hopefully a conclusion very soon. So thank you.
Thank you. And next, we're going back to the line of Kay Pointer Brown. Please go ahead.
Thank you for indulging me. I just want to clarify that I represent the Vista Garage Building Corporation, which you mentioned as not participating. The Vista Homes, which is also on your list, is a separate organization, and I wanted to clarify that the two organizations not be confused. So Vista Garage has participated. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll make that correction. So that means Vista Homes Building Corporation has not participated.
I'm sorry, I closed Ms. Pointer Brown line. Please press 10 if you'd like to reopen it. Ms. Pointer Brown, please press 10. And Ms. Pointer Brown, your line is back open.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have no further comments. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And again, if you have a question or comment, please press 10. And there are no questions. Thank you.
Okay. So at this point, I think that we can go to a second round. I know that there were a lot of consulting parties that indicated they were holding for possibly questions in the second round. So if we want to go ahead and open it up, and again, we are still focusing on questions and comments on the MOA specifically. Once we're done with this question period, then we will move to general questions. So I would like to open it up to a second round if folks have specific questions or comments on the MOA.
And again, if you have a question or comment, please press 10. If you'd like to withdraw your question or comment, you may press 10 again. And it'll be a moment for the first question. And we go into the line of Nordstrom. Please go ahead.
Good morning. This is Nord Wennerstrom with the Cultural Landscape Foundation. I wanted to raise 2 points. Number one, a caller just talked about the fact that this process has been continually delayed. In fact, this is the process that needs to take place because the Obama Presidential Center is being put into parkland that's listed in the National Register of Historic Places. Had the OPC been cited elsewhere, we would not have needed to go through this process. And in fact, we probably would have been well into groundbreaking and construction. But it's been the insistence that parkland be taken that has led to the Section 106 process and the need to also invoke NEPA. So that is the way it's going to play out. I guess the other thing I want to add is at no point has anyone from the Obama Foundation or any of the proponents said why parkland must be taken. There are alternatives, but we are being told that parkland must be taken. So I'm hopeful that at some point we'll get an answer to why that has to happen. Thank you very much.
Mr. Nordstrom, I believe that Matt Fuller responded to you in the chat, stating that the City of Chicago did indeed indicate the process by which the location of the OPC was chosen, and that was dated 6/25/2020. So I would refer you to that. I believe that explanation is complete and deserves more study than we have time on this call.
Thank you. And next, we're going to the line of Gray Oswald. Please go ahead. And Mr. Oswald, your line is open.
Oh, yes, I would like to say that the placement in Jackson Park, I think, is particularly appropriate to add on to the wonderful legacy of Olmsted and Vaux, and the work has been done between the original planning and up through the period of significance, and indeed beyond. That I think this is important to purpose and change the statement of this park, changing one section of it, an entry section on Stony Island, and modifications in various roadway edges, but leaving most of the park, excluding its nature, and adding to the nature, in fact, and making it the circulation more of what Olmsted had in mind of people being able to come to their park and enjoy it, things too, and also respect not only landscapes that help people, but also providing an even more place for nature. So I think it's important that this is precisely, to me, it's important to be in this special public park, and not lost among a bunch of other structures at the university or elsewhere. So to me, this is highly important, especially given the current name of the park. Thank you.
Sir, can you state the name of the consulting party you represent, please?
Jackson Park Advisory Council.
Thank you.
Again, I'd like to remind folks that we are focusing on the MOA and comments on the MOA specifically during this time period. Do we have anyone else that would like to make a comment in regards to that?
If you have a question or comment, please press 10. We do have one in queue already. I'm not sure. Should we go to the next line?
Sure.
Okay, going to the line of Kenner Jeff. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Kenera Jaffe with the Hyde Park Art Center. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. I just want to add, as I've added in the chat, that the Hyde Park Art Center believes it has had sufficient time to review the MOA. We've read through the entire document. We are ready to sign now, and I hope the other consulting parties who have worked so hard in this process will also agree to acknowledge that they are ready to sign and that we can move forward. I want to echo what Aaron Adams said earlier. We are ready to move forward. It is time to move forward. I could make many comments about the decision to put the OPC in Jackson Park, but that's not where we are at this point. We are reviewing the MOA and thanking the agencies who have prepared the document and have worked so tirelessly to think about what needs to be done in Jackson Park. I would hope that we can all now move forward together to make this a reality in Jackson Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there are no more questions in queue at this time.
Okay, at this point, I think we can open it up to general questions. Matt, do you have any other further comments, or do we need to hear from specific consulting parties before we move to those comments for general questions?
Yeah, we'll offer an opportunity to both the Advisory Council and the State Historic Preservation Officer if they wish to make specific remarks at this time.
The Advisory Council has no further comments at this time. I believe we've stated our opinions and our guidance and any number of other pieces of correspondence. We are looking forward to, making any last revisions, to the MOA and executing it if that is what the consulting parties decide.
This is CJ Wallace from the SHPO, and we do not have any comments at this time.
Thank you both. Okay, so with that, I believe we can move on to general questions. So again, this is open to everyone on the line, and we look forward to chatting further.
If there are any additional questions or comments, please press 1-0. And next, we're going to the line of Gary Oswald. Please go ahead.
Yes, I just want to specify the numbers that of comments that we have questions on as to whether they're correctly attributed to us, the Jackson Park Advisory Council, are numbers 31 through 36. And there may need to be an email discussion on that. If so, who would I contact on that? Matt Fuller?
I think that Todd Wyatt and then copy Matt
right.
Fuller, yeah, would certainly be the point people on that. Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are any more questions or comments, please press 1-0. And there are no questions in queue on the phone lines.
Well, it appears then that we are at the end of our question period. Matt, I'm going to turn this over to you to end the meeting.
Thank you, Eleanor, and thanks to everyone on the phone for taking time, not only today, but throughout the course of the Section 106 process to provide input and feedback along the way. It's been extraordinarily helpful to Federal Highway Administration and all the other agencies that have been involved in the Section 106 process to get to this point. And so we're really excited that that we've made it to this point where we're very close to concluding the Section 106 process. Again, I just ask folks to take a look at the signature pages on the final MOA that we sent you last week, verify information for your organization and the officials that have the authority to sign on your organization's behalf are correct. If they're not, please let Todd and me know what the correct information is. And as one of the consulting parties asked in the chat pod, I'll just point it out here again that if you do choose to sign the MOA once we send it out to everybody, sign the page. You can either scan it in and return it to us by email or send it to us by U.S. mail. You only need to return the signature sheet for your organization. You don't need to return the entire MOA, just the signature sheet for your organization. And with that, I think we'll go ahead and close out. Again, thank you for your participation, and we'll look forward to sending out the final MOA in a few weeks. Have a great day. Thank you.
And that does conclude our conference for today. Thank you for your participation and for using AT&T conferencing service. You may now disconnect. Speakers, you may stand by.